Let me ask you something honest. And I mean genuinely, uncomfortably honest. When was the last time you didn't do something, not because you couldn't, but because some quiet little voice inside your head talked you out of it? When was the last time you had an idea, felt that brief electric spark of excitement, and then slowly, almost without noticing, talked yourself down from it? When was the last time you decided to wait a little longer before chasing the thing you actually want? If you're being real with yourself right now, the answer is probably recent, maybe even today. That's what we need to talk about, because there's a prison that most people are living inside of right now, and the terrifying thing about it isn't the walls. It's that most people can't even see the walls. They've redecorated. They've hung pictures up. They've made it comfortable. And they've given it a completely different name so it doesn't feel like what it actually is. They call it being realistic. They call it being responsible. They call it patience or timing or waiting until they're ready. But strip away the language, pull back the curtain, and what's almost always sitting underneath all of those reasonable-sounding justifications is something much simpler and much more honest: fear. The most dangerous feeling you've normalized. Here's what makes fear genuinely dangerous. Not just uncomfortable, but life-alteringly dangerous. It doesn't usually announce itself. It doesn't come in like a storm. Fear operates more like a slow leak. It's quiet, it's patient, and it almost always disguises itself as logic. It doesn't say, "I'm scared." It says, "This isn't the right time." It doesn't say, "I'm terrified of being judged." It says, "I should probably do more research first." It doesn't say, "I'm afraid of failing." It says, "Let me just get a few more things in order, and then I'll start." And because those thoughts sound so reasonable, so adult, so measured, you believe them, you listen to them, you follow them. And year after year, that quiet internal negotiation chips away at something you can't get back: time and the life you were supposed to be building with it. Dreams quietly get shelved. Business ideas get permanently filed under someday. Conversations never happen. Risks never get taken. And what's left? A version of your life that's comfortable, safe, and quietly miserable in a way that's hard to even put your finger on. That's the thing about fear-driven choices. Individually, none of them feel like disasters. Saying no to one opportunity doesn't ruin your life. Waiting one more year to start something doesn't feel catastrophic in the moment. But pile enough of those small, fearful decisions on top of each other across a decade, and you wake up one morning in someone else's life. A life that was built around avoiding discomfort rather than pursuing meaning. And millions of people are living exactly that reality right now. People who are smart enough to know they want more, talented enough to actually build it, and yet completely paralyzed, not by circumstance, but by fear they've long since stopped recognizing as fear. Walter White was you. This is where Breaking Bad stops being a show about drugs and starts being a mirror most people aren't ready to look into. Before the transformation, before the alias, before any of the chaos, Walter White was a deeply ordinary man in the worst possible sense. Not ordinary in terms of talent or intelligence. The man was genuinely brilliant, a chemistry prodigy, someone who, in his younger years, helped co-found a company called Gray Matter Technologies from the ground up. That company eventually became worth billions. Walter wasn't there for it. He walked away early. He sold his stake for a fraction of what it would become, stepped back from the company he helped create, and spent the following decades watching two of his former colleagues get rich off something he helped build. And the reason he left, the reason he made that decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life, wasn't strategic, it wasn't logical. It was fear. Fear of conflict, fear of uncertainty, fear of betting on himself and losing, fear of what might happen if he actually tried and it didn't work out. So he took the safe path. He became a high school chemistry teacher, which is a noble profession. But in Walter's case, it was never what he chose. It was what he retreated to. There's a difference between building a meaningful life as a teacher and hiding inside the security of a steady paycheck because you couldn't face the alternative. Walter was doing the latter. And the life that resulted from those fearful choices wasn't just modest. It was quietly painful. His students dismissed him. He was picking up extra shifts at a car wash on the weekends just to keep his family above water. His sense of self-worth had been slowly eroded over years of feeling overlooked, underestimated, and invisible. He was a man living with a low, constant hum of regret that he probably didn't even fully acknowledge to himself anymore. Sound familiar? Maybe not the specific details, but the general shape of it. The feeling of knowing you're capable of more while being too afraid to reach for it, that resonates with more people than most would ever admit out loud. When time stops feeling infinite, then comes the cancer diagnosis, and everything shifts. When Walter's doctor sits him down and tells him that his time may be very limited, something cracks open. Not just grief, though there's plenty of that. Something deeper, something that urgency tends to unlock in people. He suddenly sees, with brutal clarity, what he spent decades refusing to look at directly. All those years of playing it safe. All those small retreats from risk. All that talent and potential left sitting on a shelf because the timing never felt quite right. And now the clock was actually, visibly, undeniably running out. This is something worth sitting with for a moment, because it's easy to hear that story and think, well, that's sad, but it doesn't apply to me. I'm young. I have time. And that's exactly the thought pattern that makes it apply to you. You genuinely believe you have unlimited runway, that the version of yourself who finally takes the leap is just a few months or a few years away, that your dreams can wait, that your potential can stay on hold, that the business or the channel or the move or the relationship or the creative project can all exist in a future version of your life that you'll get around to eventually. But time doesn't negotiate. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready or for circumstances to become ideal or for fear to magically dissolve on its own. Life moves at the same pace for everyone, and it moves fast in a way that only becomes obvious in hindsight. Walter's diagnosis didn't give him new abilities. It didn't change what he was capable of. All it did was remove the illusion that there was always more time. And once that illusion was gone, he finally started acting. The question is whether you need that kind of pain to wake you up, or whether you can choose to wake up right now while you still have the runway ahead of you. The part where courage gets misunderstood, when Walter starts moving, when he enters the drug world, when he begins cooking, when he takes his first real steps into dangerous territory, he is not fearless, not even close. He's terrified almost constantly in the early stages. Anyone would be. But he moves anyway, and that distinction is everything. There's this deeply persistent myth that brave people don't feel fear. That confidence means you've somehow conquered the anxiety, that successful people woke up one day without the butterflies, without the self-doubt, without the stomach-dropping dread of doing something new and risky and uncertain. It's a comforting myth, but it's completely untrue. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act while the fear is still fully present. It's feeling every bit of the anxiety and moving forward anyway, because the alternative, staying frozen, costs more than the discomfort of pushing through. Think about the moment Walter walks into Tuco Salamanca's office. He was terrified. Any rational human being would have been. But he acted on his plan. He stood his ground, and in doing so, he crossed a threshold that changed how he saw himself. For the first time in decades, he wasn't the man who backed down. He was the man who showed up. And once you do that once, really do it. Not in a small, comfortable way, but in a genuinely difficult, scary way. Something shifts in your identity. You start to understand, on a level that no book or video can give you, that fear is not the final word, that you can be afraid and still move. And once that understanding is in your body, rather than just your head, you start to become someone different. Now think about that in your own life for a second. Maybe it's not a drug lord's office. Maybe it's a camera that you can't bring yourself to turn on because you don't want people to judge what you make. Maybe it's a business plan that's been sitting in a notes app for 2 years because you can't face the possibility that it might not work. Maybe it's a conversation you keep postponing because rejection feels unbearable. Maybe it's a job you should have left a long time ago, but stability feels safer than the unknown. Whatever it is, the fear surrounding it is probably not as insurmountable as your brain is telling you. Your brain, for all its brilliance, is genuinely bad at accurately assessing the cost of trying versus the cost of not trying. It overestimates the danger of action and dramatically underestimates the damage of staying frozen. That's not a character flaw. It's just how the human brain is wired. But understanding it means you don't have to keep letting it make your decisions for you. Where Walter goes wrong and why it matters for you, here's where the story takes a turn that's just as important as everything before it. Walter starts winning. He gets good at what he does. He gains power, reputation, and resources. And somewhere in that climb, something quietly shifts inside him. He stops doing it out of desperation, out of survival, out of a desire to provide for his family. He starts doing it because he likes how it makes him feel. He likes the power. He likes the recognition. He likes being feared, being respected, being the one who makes decisions. And that hunger, which was originally just buried ambition finally allowed to surface, starts to curdle into something toxic. His ego stops being fuel and starts being a weapon he uses against everyone around him. I am the one who knocks. That line is chilling, not because it's menacing, but because of what's underneath it. That's not the voice of a confident man. That's the voice of someone who spent years feeling invisible and is now so desperately overcompensating that he's losing grip on everything that actually mattered to him. His family, his relationships, his own humanity. And this is the second trap. Because while most people reading this are still stuck in Walter's first phase, too afraid to start, too comfortable to move, the lesson from his latter arc is just as crucial. When fear is finally overcome and success starts to arrive, the enemy can quietly shift. Pride steps in where fear left out. Ego fills the space that insecurity used to occupy. And ego, when it's driving, destroys things just as thoroughly as fear does, just more publicly, more dramatically, and usually while taking innocent people down with it. Walter's marriage collapses. His relationship with his son deteriorates beyond repair. His partnership with Jesse, the one person who is genuinely loyal to him, completely falls apart. By the time things reach their conclusion, Walter has everything he said he wanted, and almost nothing that actually matters. The ego told him that recognition was the point, that power was the goal. That being seen as the most important person in the room was what all of this was supposed to lead to, and chasing that version of success cost him everything real. So, what are you actually going to do? Here's where it gets uncomfortable, because there's a version of this essay where you read all of this, feel genuinely moved by it, maybe feel that familiar flash of motivation, and then go back to exactly what you were doing before. Nothing changes. The fear keeps writing your decisions. The ego keeps rationalizing the stagnation. That's what usually happens with insight that isn't followed by action. And I'm not saying that to be harsh. I'm saying it because it's the honest truth that most of this kind of content politely avoids. Motivation is not a strategy. Inspiration has a shelf life of hours, sometimes minutes. The understanding you've built by reading this will fade, and what takes its place is the same brain that was already running its usual programs before you started. The only thing that actually changes fear, the only thing that has ever genuinely worked, is repeated action taken while fear is still present. Not after you feel ready, not after you've done more research, not after you've got a cleaner plan or a better setup or a more convenient moment. Now, messy, imperfect, uncomfortable, right now. Confidence doesn't come from thinking about doing something. It comes from doing it, surviving the discomfort, and realizing the anticipation was always worse than the reality. Then doing it again and again, until the version of you that was once terrified of that thing can barely remember what the fear felt like. Imagine the version of you that exists 10 years from now, looking back at this specific moment. What do you want that person to be able to say? That this was when things started to shift? Or that this was just another piece of content that temporarily felt meaningful before disappearing into the noise? That's genuinely up to you. Not in a vague, inspirational poster kind of way. Literally, concretely, in terms of specific decisions you make in the next few days and weeks. Up to you. The real lesson Walter left behind. At the very end of his story, Walter White does something he'd almost never done throughout the entire journey. He sits across from his wife, looks her in the eyes, and tells the truth. I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. And I was alive. After all the rationalizations, all the justifications, all the elaborate stories he told himself and everyone else about why he was doing what he was doing, he finally got honest. He admitted that underneath everything, this was about him, about finally feeling alive after decades of quietly dying inside. It was too late for Walter. His honesty came at an enormous cost to himself and everyone who had ever loved him. But you're reading this now, which means you still have time to get honest. Not at the end, but at the beginning. Be honest about what you're actually afraid of. Not the surface version, but the real one underneath it. Because there's usually something specific. The fear of being seen as foolish, of failing in front of people who doubted you, of discovering that you tried your hardest and it still wasn't enough. Name it, sit with it, and then ask yourself whether that fear is genuinely a reason not to act, or whether it's just an obstacle that every person who has ever built anything meaningful had to walk through. Be honest about what you're protecting. Comfort? The image of someone who hasn't failed because they haven't really tried? The approval of people whose opinions, if you're really honest, shouldn't be determining the direction of your life? And be honest about the cost of staying exactly where you are. Not the dramatic version, not my life is a disaster, the quiet version, the slow erosion of potential, the accumulating weight of things you meant to do, the gap that keeps widening between who you are and who you know, somewhere underneath all the fear that you're actually capable of becoming. Start right now, before this feeling fades. Launch the thing, post the first video, send the email, book the flight, have the conversation, apply for the thing. Say yes to the terrifying opportunity. Say no to the comfortable trap. Do the thing your fearful self has been finding creative reasons to avoid. Learn from Walter White. Not the destruction, not the moral collapse, not the ruined relationships, and the wasted years at the end. Learn the part that actually matters. That a person can spend decades frozen in fear and still, even late, even imperfectly, choose to move. Learn his urgency, because urgency is something you can choose to feel before tragedy forces it on you. Learn his willingness to face the terrifying thing and step toward it rather than away. And learn from where he failed. That the goal was never power, it was never dominance or recognition or having people fear your name. Those things are empty in a way that only becomes obvious once you've chased them far enough. The goal, if there's a goal worth naming, is to build a life that's genuinely, honestly yours. Not the cautious, fear-shaped version. The real one. Fear can write your story if you let it. So can ego, once fear is out of the way. But neither of them has to. That part is yours.